name's Brendan Weigel. I'm with the Fall River Group. I'm president and CEO. We're going to start out with a quick video, kind of does an overview of our company. And then I'll get into the history of Fall River Foundry. You'll see, mold making, core making, ornamental, which is the exciting part of the foundry. So, no sound?
No.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, you can watch this as it's going through. So, Fall River Foundry, we've been in business for 72 years. We were founded in 1953. I guess we'll just let this play out for a second.
Yeah, a cold day. All right. Thank you, John. I go full screen. Yeah. Oh, right there. Yep. Say okay. It's just a link in there. There we go. Oh, not trusted. There we go. So just click the little tab. We'll do it.
All right. Happened to history, Fall River Foundry. Again, I'm Brendan Weigel, President and CEO of Fall River Foundry. I'm going to do a quick overview of what we actually do. We're a green sand foundry, and that's what we're referred to as. So we're a green sand brass foundry, and what they mean by green sand is we use silica sand to produce our castings. So we basically take, looks like beach sand, mix clay into it, and pack that into our molds, and that's what we use to create our castings. If you look back on the table, I actually brought a core with us too, which actually makes the internal geometry of our castings. And that's a chemically bonded process. So, but everything is that we use is sand related in Fall River. We primarily deal with the waterworks industry, so our forte is making water meters. So if you live in the city and you have a water meter in your house and it's made out of brass, odds are we made it. We were founded in 1953, and we actually were spun off from Badger Meter. So here's some of Badger Meter's original advertisements. Badger Meter was owned by a fellow by the name of Charles W. Wright, and in 1952 he unexpectedly passed away. So he was the sole owner of Badger Meter. So his twin sons took over the company, and in 1953 they elected to split off the foundry that they had in Milwaukee, and James Wright took over Badger Meter operations, and William Wright built Fall River Foundry. So that construction started in 1953, and we do have a video of that. So there's the original building. This is 1958. This is actually when the building was under construction. And there's a YouTube link to this as well, which is pretty cool, looking at how they built heavy industry buildings back in the day. Oh, we can't get the video to play, but that's fine. So anyway, William Wright started Fall River Foundry, sole owner. So it was built in started construction in 53, had an open house in 1954, I believe in January. Yeah, so the Columbus Journal Republican had a souvenir paper. We have a bunch of those still in our archives, but you can see January 2nd, they had an open house. Operations didn't start then. It must have been they had the equipment installed, and you know, at the time it was kind of a showpiece for Fall River, you know, with a foundry being built. And yeah, just some more of the original open house literature. And this is one of our molding lines. I'll get into this a little bit later. Yeah. So if you look back on the table, you'll see some of the old items that we have. But what's really priceless to me is I actually have the first mold ever poured in the foundry. It was poured in August of 1954. It was presented to the president at the time, and we've kept that. And it's actually home on a shelf in my office. Yes, we had open house, 1906. So starting out, you had the two brothers, one having Badger Meter, one having Fall River Foundry. There was an agreement that Fall River Foundry would produce all of Badger Meter's castings, which we still do today. And that was the start of Fall River Foundry. And throughout the 60s, Fall River Foundry primarily just did work for Badger Meter. There was a little bit of jobbing work, and when I say jobbing work, that is producing castings for OEMs. We do not produce our own product. We produce castings, now we machine them as well, for OEMs. So when I say OEMs, like the water meter companies, we also do fire hydrants. Believe it or not, they do full fire hydrants made out of brass, which is pretty cool. A lot of trim parts, a lot of fire protection. And if you look back on the table, we actually do cemetery bases as well. Kind of a dying industry. Anyway, throughout the 60s, you know, we were primarily doing work for Badger Meter, a little bit of jobbing work, and this molding line that you see here was one of the first automatic molding lines put in a brass foundry, and that was done during the 60s, and it really helped us progress in our production capabilities, and you know, our output was much better because if you look, so here's manual molding. So you can see it was done by hand. The sand was packed into molds by hand, which we still do today in part of our foundry for shorter runs. And you can see in the background of the one picture, we're pouring the mold by manually with a ladle. Those hold roughly about 300 pounds of metal, which we still use today. And that's, you know, we've carried that tradition on and had a lot of skilled workers. The one individual here, Russ Milkey, worked well into the 2000s, worked for us for well over 50 years. And we have a number of employees that have worked for us over 50 years. 1970s came around. My father, Ray Weigel, joined Fall River. He actually came from Milwaukee Valve when Milwaukee Valve had their foundry in Milwaukee. He was a plant superintendent, so he came to Fall River as plant superintendent, and over the years eventually became CEO and co-owner of Fall River Foundry. Bill Wright's son, our original founder, Charlie F. Wright, took over ownership for the Wright family, and he was somewhat involved in operations, but he was more on the financial side. So he actually started up some funds. So he never was really directly involved in production at Fall River Foundry, but he's still vice chairman to this day. And Bill Wright's grandson is actually our vice president of operations at our die-cast facility, which I'll get into in a minute here. So 1977, Fall River Foundry purchased Lemco Plastics in Germantown, and we dabbled in the plastics business for a little bit. Wasn't really our forte, it was kind of getting out of our wheelhouse. But at the same time, we were experimenting with what's called permanent mold in Fall River. And permanent mold is a process, instead of using sand, the molds are made out of steel, and we pour molten metal into the steel. So we had that operation in Fall River for a short time, and eventually moved it down to Germantown, which then morphed into, because that wasn't a process that wasn't really conducive for us, and so we elected to go into what's called a die cast process, which is a high pressure die cast where we're taking molten metal and hydraulically forcing that into metal molds. Forms a very tight, high tolerance casting, and we still have that facility today. It started out as Rio Cast, and that was in 1977. So, back it up a little bit, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. This is our some ladies making cores in our core room, and as you can see from the picture, this was done either late 50s, early 60s, and you can see their apparel probably isn't OSHA approved today. I'm not even sure they're wearing steel-toe boots. It's a good conversation piece. We have this picture when you come in out of our shop. Here's an individual filling a ladle, and that is actually John Vick's father. And the other gentleman, his name is Tony Ergman, and he was one of the original employees that moved up from Milwaukee when Badger Meter had their foundry. And he was our quality inspector for many years. Just another picture from the 70s, and you can see the original foundry. It looks a little different than it does today. You know, typical foundry with a lot of windows. Not very warm in the winter. Yep, this is now getting into the 80s here. This is just some of our brochures for sales. Yeah, so major changes happened in the 1980s. Yeah, we shifted from just doing castings. We started providing a little value added by machining our castings, so we became a foundry and machine shop. We purchased what we call Fall River Manufacturing, which originally was Westlock Corporation on South 13th Street in Milwaukee. And we ran that facility for many years. The Westlock Corp had its own proprietary product. They did lock nuts and lock washers for the bearing industries, primarily for the paper mills. And that was actually a proprietary product of ours. It was a screw machine shop, which there aren't many left in this country anymore. And then we started machining our castings there. We saw there was a value add, and our customers, some of them were smaller customers, didn't really want to update their machining, and we said, well, we can provide you a machine complete part, and that's how we got into the machining business. In 1988, we moved a division of our foundry to Rio, and that was our finishing process. So after we cast our parts, they still have sand on them, they need to be cleaned, and then they need to be trimmed so they're presentable for our customers. We have, if you look at the castings back on the table, there's what we call flashing. They need to be ground and re-cleaned so they're acceptable to our customers. So we moved that facility up to Rio, went relatively smooth. It was an existing plant. We were kind of in a time constraint, so it was a pretty quick move. The equipment that we moved it didn't involve a lot as far as rigging was concerned. So we got that plant up and running in a pretty short time. And it worked for us at that point in time for us. Then we move into the 1990s, and I consider those our boomer years. There was a lack of capacity in the United States for brass castings. There was a big demand. Housing was on fire, a lot of new construction. So we were doing a lot, not only for the water meter industry, the infrastructure, like fire hydrants and fire protections. The OEMs that have their own foundries were at capacity, so we were filling up the needs that they had. So we were quite busy through the 1990s. And then, so these are our different divisions, as you can see, Riocast, Fall River Manufacturing, Milwaukee, and then our Ryle Finishing Plant. Yeah, we'll go back to that. So this is a big event that happened with us in Fall River, and some of you probably remember it. September 8th, 1999, we had a disastrous fire. Destroyed 2/3 of our plant, our high volume automatic molding machine, all of our melters for melt capacity, our core room, which makes our internals for our castings, everything was destroyed. The manual lines that you saw, that portion of the plant was damaged, but non-functional for about 2 weeks. We were able to get that up and running. So during that time frame, so from September to March, which doesn't seem like that long, we were outsourcing our parts, and in the meantime, we were rebuilding our foundry. And huge, a lot of thanks goes out to my employees. We retained a lot of our employees to help out with castings that were getting shipped in for finishing on them, and inspecting them, and then just helping with the rebuild, installing new equipment. Western Construction at the time was doing the building, did an outstanding job. Got us back up and running by March. We were pouring metal in March already, which today, I mean, I think back, it was quite a feat. Anyway, so during that time, we had outsourced to 16 different brass foundries throughout the United States and Canada. And then for our core process, we had 3 different companies producing our cores as well. So kind of a logistic nightmare. But our customers stuck with us, and we got through it. And we were stronger and a better company after that. And then 2000s continued to grow, had more expansions, did more automating for the foundry because it's very hard work. So we were looking at ways to improve our molding and not make it so manually intensive. And so we did a lot of automation, added customers. And in 2003, we elected to close down our Ryle plant, put an expansion on, and move back to Fall River. We were getting busier, we were a growing company, and the logistics were getting to be too much, running trucks back and forth between the 2 towns. So we elected to put addition on and move Ryle back to Fall River, which I think was a fantastic move. And then in 2016, because a lot of our customers were doing their own machining and they've been bought out by larger conglomerates, and they just didn't want to put the investment into manufacturing. So we saw a lot of our customers getting out of manufacturing themselves and become more reliant on us. So our machining end of business really blew up during the 2000s. So in 2016, we elected to put another addition on and moved our machining operations from Milwaukee to Fall River. So now we have cast and machine under one roof. We do leak testing as well on the parts, and we're able to meet our customers' requirements. 2024, we rebranded our die-cast facility from Riocast to Fall River Die-Cast. We felt it was a better fit from a marketing standpoint under the Fall River Group umbrella. And at that time, we also expanded our capacities down there with more machines, die-cast machines, and we've done quite well with growing that business. So today, Fall River Foundry, believe it or not, is the largest brass jobbing foundry in the United States. Globally, I don't know where we stand because we really don't know what's going on in other countries, but we are a major player here in small Fall River. And we do about 1,400 tons per month of brass and bronze. And Fall River Die-Cast, we still do brass there. We do a lot of aluminum, but we do medium run type work, so we're not competing with the big automotive die-cast shops. But we're one of the last remaining brass die-casters here in the United States as well. So if you want to take a minute to look at what we've got on the back table, you can see some examples of what we make, some of our history. I do have a core there. I've got a water meter that's unmachined, one that's machined, and then you can see the core that makes the internal sitting back there. Hopefully you enjoyed my spiel here. Thank you.